Welcome to Spotlight Sessions, where we shine
What's
a light
your
on
story?
incredible. What does accessibility mean to you?
What's your mission?
Hello and welcome to another episode of accessiBe's Spotlight Sessions. We're so happy to have you here. My name is Sapir and I'm your host for today's episode. I head up accessiBe's nonprofit partnership program and I'm really excited to have our guest here today. So welcome, Kendra.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here today.
We are excited too. So Kendra, let's jump right in. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm Kendra Gottsleben and I live in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And I have a rare disease called, broad term, mucopolysaccharidosis type 6. The acronym is MPS Type 6. And I was diagnosed at the age of 4. And so my journey in the rare disease space, disability world, has been pretty much a long journey.
Amazing. So I'm really excited for everyone to hear a little bit about the work that you've been doing in your journey. Can you tell us some of the organizations that you're affiliated with?
So I have been working for a nonprofit here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, called the Center for Disabilities. It's housed within the Sanford School of Medicine at the University of South Dakota. And we do a lot, like our audience is really broad, but since we're housed in the medical school, we have the opportunity to work with med students, social workers, individuals who are healthcare providers. And then we work with students and we work with parents with children and adults with disabilities. And then we work with self-advocates with disabilities. So we kind of hit every range of it. And our mission really that guides our work here is dedicated to life without limits. So we do a lot of work, and I'm the social media marketing communication specialist. So I'm kind of the one driving the work that we're doing and sharing those stories that we kind of do. And then recently, in 2021, I took the plunge and started my own nonprofit called Rare by Design. And the mission with that organization is celebrating the rare that makes us unique and extraordinary. And I decided to start this nonprofit because I am rare, and disability and rare go hand in hand. But there wasn't a lot of creative, fun opportunities for our community here in the Midwest. A lot of things regarding disability, rare disease, kind of happen on the East Coast, the West Coast. Those fun events that are not always academia driven and that stuff. So that's kind of what's made me want to try to create this nonprofit, and it's been fun. And we're still a baby. We'll be 3 in March, so it's been a fun journey.
Thanks for sharing and congratulations on Rare by Design. It's really cool that with the first organization that you started, that you work with, the holistic method that comes with being there for a family or being there for the patients and also caring for the healthcare providers that are part of that to make sure that they're addressing the concerns. And then from that, finding your own space and creating something that's your own.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of where that kind of came from. I've been in this space, especially work-wise, not just living the life of a person with a disability, rare disease, but also being able to help. Even though I'm behind the, computer for some of it, I also get a lot of opportunities to talk to med students. Since I am so rare, a lot of people don't, especially in the healthcare world, I'm so rare that there's like 100 of me in the United States. So the students and healthcare providers getting to talk to me, especially now that I'm older, talking about the transition from the peds world to the adult world. It's kind of a good way to kind of help them learn, because I always feel like knowledge is power, and I'm honored to share my story to help others gain from, things that I have gone through or my perspective on stuff. Disability etiquette, rare disease etiquette, all of that kind of stuff.
So we have so much to learn from you. Can you share a memorable experience or an event that's had a lasting impact on you from your career experience or even from your personal life?
So in 2012, I self-published my first book called Live, Laugh, Love, A Journey of Choosing to Beat the Odds. And it was the experience that I'm going to talk about is, so I was diagnosed at 4. And when that book came out in 2012, a dad from Canada had reached out via social media and said, we just bought your book. Our daughter is 4 years old and is diagnosed with the same condition that you have. And we wanted to buy your book to see how your parents were raised you, or how you your life journey has kind of gotten to you where you are. And for me, that was kind of like a full circle, because I was diagnosed at 4. And, when I was diagnosed, there wasn't, that was not even Google. That was, 30 plus years ago. So it was an experience that I felt honored to be able to now help this little girl, but also her parents with the journey. Everybody's journey is different, not just because they have, just because she has the same condition doesn't mean she's going to go through everything that I did. But it's always nice to have guidance, and when I was diagnosed, there really wasn't much out there, or for parents to kind of see what the future could possibly look like.
How lucky are they that they have you? How lucky are we that we have you? So with that in mind, what comes to mind when you hear the word accessibility?
So accessibility is a large topic, but I think a lot of people think accessibility is just like structures, physical structures. But for me, the word accessibility just means access to anything. Leveling the playing field for people with disabilities. And for me, since I use a wheelchair, I'm 3 feet tall and can walk, but not long distances. So I've always, since I was in high school, have had a wheelchair. So access with a wheelchair can be extremely challenging, getting into structures and things. But then access always also means access to on the internet, computer, are things legible? Can people read? So accessibility means a lot of things to me.
And we were talking about this just before, about reading something and making sure that it's actually interpretable for someone and in a language that they can understand and relate to, as opposed to something really dense and difficult.
Yes, because there's so many avenues that knowledge or information is shared through, especially with some of my work here at the Center for Disabilities, because we're working with med students and really smart people, that we also have to remember the audience, that some of these words I don't know. So it's like we've got to make sure that whoever we're creating the content for, the knowledge, the wording is at that level, so that they actually are gaining what we're trying to share with them through our message.
Definitely. So, follow-up question to that, what's one thing that you wish people knew about people with disabilities or those with rare diseases?
So the biggest thing I just wish a lot of people knew or would try to remember is that we are people that are valuable community members. Our perspectives add a lot to the conversation. So when we're creating, or when an event is being created, or a business is being created, or structures are being built, like, I feel like they really need to have someone at their table from the beginning to help, not just accessibility wise, but just that perspective of, have you thought about this? Did you look at it that way? Because a lot of people with disabilities are innovators too, because we've had to adapt quickly sometimes in certain situations. And like for me, when I was growing up, I was taught very much by my mom, like, we have a plan A and we have a plan B. So, kind of that mentality too is like when you're creating anything, that think of different ways that this could work. Don't have this is the only way it's ever going to work. Like, be creative. And I think people with disabilities and rare diseases have done that because of their many journeys that they've had throughout their life.
Mm-hmm. And we hear a lot about user experience, but people often will design or build based on the experience that they think will be accessible or usable to them, but that's not going to be the same for any other person.
Yeah,
So we do need to have diverse voices at the table.
yeah, and I think people need to realize, like, let's say, companies building structures and stuff. It's nobody knows everything, and nobody can, and that's fine. But you need to acknowledge that you don't know everything, and then that the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, if some people or companies, businesses, whatever, use that as a checkbox, and it is a checkbox, but the reality is go beyond what the ADA says. Is it really a user experience? Like, you want to go beyond and say, did you feel welcomed? Not that you just checked the ADA accommodations of a building or something. And I think people think that it's harder to make something feel welcomed. I think they stick to the ADA because they know that that's legal and we're good. But it's like sometimes just going beyond that isn't even that more complicated. And that's where having people with disabilities at the table, or rare diseases, or different perspectives in general, not just disability. You need to have different perspectives at the table when creating anything.
I love that you said that. And I think it's quite poignant that we're recording this session the day before the 33rd anniversary of the American with Disabilities Act. So one point that's really important and what you just suggested is it's not just about the compliance. Is it actually inclusive?
Exactly. And I think people don't realize it's not that hard to be inclusive. You just have to, like, have those people at the table, because you might, if that's not your journey, that's where they come in handy and say, hey, we could just move this over here or put this on there, and then you feel more inclusive for all. And I think the reality is people don't realize too, if it works for someone with a disability or rare disease, it's going to work for the majority of our society.
Yeah. That's an often forgotten point.
Yeah.
It's a really important one. So, do you have a message for the business community, what they can do more of?
So my message would be, when you're starting at the beginning with anything, and even if it's maybe you're touching something up or whatever, is create focus groups or get those people in there to give you the perspective of, yes, this works, this doesn't work, did you think about that? So I would say start tapping on people who are in your community that are willing to share their voice and their expertise with your companies so that your company can feel more welcoming. And what people don't realize too is that when you find a business, organization, whatever, restaurant, and you have that welcoming feeling, you've got a person with a disability or rare disease that's going to come back because there are so many places, businesses that don't give off that feeling. Mm-hmm. That once we find something that shows that they value us as a person, as a customer, as a, whatever, consumer, we're going to go back to that because we don't see that enough in society.
Yeah, that customer loyalty.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So, final question for you today. And I'm sad that this conversation is ending soon. We can keep going later. But final question for today is that if all of us can be doing one bit to make the world more inclusive, what would that be?
I would say acceptance. Just realizing that acceptance on so many levels, but like acceptance that you're not going to know everything. So have those people at the table. Acceptance of inclusion means all when we say all. And acceptance in that for individuals with disabilities, sometimes there can be tough days. And so acceptance of you are doing great, you're doing your work, you have so much to offer this world that we're going to have tough days and we're going to have good days. So I would say learning acceptance of all in society.
I love that message. Kendra, thank you so much for joining us on the Spotlight Sessions.
Thank you. I'm excited to have been here, and I look forward to seeing this on everywhere.
We'll make sure of it. So to all of our listeners, thank you so much for joining and for tuning into this episode. You can continue the conversation with us by liking and subscribing to this channel. You can also follow us on Instagram at accessiBe_community, and we look forward to seeing you there. Bye-bye.